Hey guys, what's up? 2-Bit Jesus here, and may the 4th be with you. Yes, it's that time of year again. One of my favorite holidays of the entire year is here, May the 4th. And we always take a look at a Star Wars game, and this year it's special because we are finishing off a franchise that we've been taking a look at for some time now, the Rogue Squadron franchise. And this is the final game in the series, and also Factor 5's final game on the GameCube. Let's jump right in. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Strike is an arcade-style action game developed by Factor 5 and published by LucasArts. It was released in the fall of 2003 for the Nintendo GameCube. Rebel Strike had a bumpy development, released only 2 years after Rogue Leader. The development team had already hit all the big set pieces of the original trilogy, and Rogue Squadron, being based significantly in the original trilogy, painted the team into a corner. They went with bigger, better, and more expansive as their North Star for this game's development. They pursued this so intensely that they completely scrapped the game engine used in Rogue Leader, in their words, to reinvent the wheel. This caused a lot of troubles in the development as they had to build from scratch. All of that informs me that Factor 5 was just about done making Star Wars games. In fact, after Rebel Strike, they would leave the series and LucasArts behind to make Lair for the PS3, and after that, sadly, shutter their studio. With these tidbits done, let's for one last time use the Force in this review. Even with a completely new game engine being made, Factor 5 are still the lords of arcade flight simulators. Everything that was great about the previous games returned. Smooth controls, a diversity of spacecraft and mission types. All the series' favorites return as well when it comes to spacecraft. You have X-Wings, Y-Wings, B-Wings, and some bonus craft that can be unlocked, like the Jedi Starfighter from the Clone Wars. It comes with those Jango Fett bombs that had that awesome sound effect to them. I am fully satisfied with this portion of the game. The only negative I can say is while they have perfected this game mechanic, they have not innovated much. There is nothing flight-wise in Rebel Strike I couldn't get in Rogue Leader. The missions and settings are very similar. The big innovation Factor 5 was banking on was the addition of ground vehicles and third-person on-foot action. The ground vehicles handled decently. Mind you, the development team had done this style of game in previous projects. You can pilot Imperial walkers, speeders, etc. It performs relatively well. Sometimes though, it does feel like it's an on-rails type of shooter, and all I can really control is strafing left or right. The on-foot portions are atrocious. The camera is fixed, which is terrible for a third-person action game. You can get disoriented rather quickly. The auto-aim is useless. You just spray and pray when you come upon stormtroopers. The controls are very sluggish, and in this portion of the game, there is a lot of instances of slowdown and stuttering. When taking control of a turret, the game fights you to keep the turret aiming in the middle of the screen. You will be spraying the entire screen with blaster shots, hoping to hit anything that's moving. It seems to me like the ground portion of Rebel Strike never left beta, and they shipped it that way. Overall, the single player is a mixed bag that should have spent more time in the oven. There is another portion of this game that is the saving grace, and that is the co-op mode. You and a buddy can play the best Rogue Squadron game that was ever made, Rogue Leader. The development team adjusted the enemy AI and numbers to account for 2 players, so it will be a challenge for you and a friend. Like all Factor 5 games, there are lots of bonuses to unlock, whether it be spacecraft, bonus missions, or the classic Star Wars arcade games. They're in here. They give you a lot of reasons to come back to this game and keep playing. Level design from the previous games has returned with a lot of changes. You still have the big open areas for dogfights and tight trench runs. There are a variety of enemies in the air and ground to fight. Rebel Strike seems to have lessened the difficulty curve just a bit. Rogue Leader's enemies felt more numerous and aggressive. Rebel Strike won't hold your hand, but also they won't slap it like in previous titles. The ground portion, in particular the on-foot sections, are thankfully short and mainly consist of going through a couple of hallways and rooms, and that's it. There are some platforming sections that, while not hard, were a little janky thanks to the fixed camera. You know what's not such a great idea? To add 2D style camera angles with 3D style control schemes. Factor 5 really jumped the shark with this title in their attempt to top their magnus opus, Rogue Leader. They may have come up with something great had they spent a little more time developing this title, but I'm sure Nintendo and LucasArts did not give them that time. The flight portions of this game and Rogue Leader's co-op campaign saves this game from being a total disaster. Gameplay gets 2 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4. Factor 5 once again shows they have the tools and the talent to deliver great sound. Like the previous title, all the sound effects and music from the original trilogy of movies and some of Factor 5's in-house scores shine through and are of excellent quality. The only shortcoming is the voice acting. Darth Vader is awesome, but Han Solo sounds terrible. There are occasional bugs in the game where a character keeps repeating the same line over and over again. Hey, I'm looking at you, Lando. It doesn't break the sound, but it is annoying. Sound gets 2 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4.
Not escape!
The Empire is finished, Sarkly. You chose the wrong side.
Rebel Strike still looks great. They have improved the lighting over the previous titles. The ships, worlds, structures, and outer space look phenomenal. Even the character models in the ground section look pretty decent considering this was their first crack at making these types of models. While the models are great, the animations to them are a bit rough. Factor 5 once again comes up short on the story side of things. This time around, you have a branching story between Luke Skywalker and Wedge Antilles. Luke does a couple of missions for Rogue Squadron, then goes off to become a Jedi and follow the trilogy's plot. Wedge's story follows the stereotypical setup that we're used to in this series. He completes missions in between the movie's plot to help further the rebellion's cause. There is a subplot within this story. A team member of Luke and Wedge's double-crosses them and joins the Empire. He appears throughout the story and ultimately is taken out by Han Solo, not Luke and Wedge, who he betrayed. Just happens to be Han Solo. This subplot feels like an afterthought to make the player feel like a story is taking place, rather than just experiencing set pieces from parts of the movies that we love. This subplot is not the only example. A Wedge level has you crash landing on Geonosis, then being led by R4 to find Obi-Wan's old Jedi Starfighter. If this was a bonus mission, that would be one thing, as those typically have nothing to do with the main story of the games. But they worked it in there and forced it into the main campaign and the main story, and I use story loosely here. And again, it just feels forced. They didn't need to do that. With great visuals, but a substandard story, presentation gets 2 bits.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4.
We've located the rebels.
Wow, Rebel Strike was a lot better in my nostalgia memories than playing through it as an adult. Now, don't get me wrong, the co-op on Rebel Strike is chef's kiss. It is excellent. But the main single-player campaign, you can really tell they were done with this franchise. They had done everything they possibly could with this series on the GameCube, and they were ready to move on, and that's why they made Lair for the PS3, and we won't go there. So, my final verdict for Star Wars Rebel Strike is still a recommended buy for the casual and hardcore collector alike. Now, the single-player campaign is far from perfect, but that co-op mode, it makes all the difference. It makes this game a must-buy for any GameCube owner or any Star Wars fanatic, in my opinion. So, you can find it online between $10 to $13 depending on its condition. It's a must-have, and you can only find it on the Nintendo GameCube unless sometime in the future they've released an HD, compilation pack, and then my point is mute here. But until that day, this is the only place you can get it at. So guys, that's it from me. Please thumbs up, subscribe, talk in the comments, let me know what you think about this game and this game series. And last but not least, stay safe and play on, and of course, may the 4th be with you.